fact, every member of the U.S. Joint Chiefs of Staff right now is a white male. White men are 29% of the population. Is it possible that white men are the only people in the world, in this country, who are qualified to be on the Joint Chiefs of Staff? That's the assumption, I guess.
That no matter what test they took, if you're a woman or a person of color in a high position, that you've got to go because you for sure didn't meet the standard, which is not true. DEI is for recruiting. It's not for giving a lower standard to pass a test.
Donald Trump have launched a campaign against DEI, against women, against people of color, against black people. And here on Veterans Day, we just found out that they were removing a memorial of black soldiers at a military.
A picture of the Enola Gay because it got flagged for DEI problems, right? They took it off the wall at the Pentagon. It's so silly, but the major problem here in terms of DEI, I think, is that the assumption becomes if you get rid of all the people of color and the women, that regardless of who put them in those positions, that they're not qualified for them. No matter what test they took, if you're a woman or a person of color in a high position, that you've got to go because you for sure didn't.
A real on-the-record reason, or just speculation?
The only statement we have from the press secretary of the Pentagon.
Hello, everybody. Guys, we got Baby Boo of the Year, Trump's baby mama, Scott Jennings, and we got Big Boy, Kingpin. Let's get into the segment, and we'll talk about it.
Pick up the debate where we left off. Scott was just saying, it sounds like you don't believe what the administration is saying. I would argue it's probably safe to have like a fair amount of skepticism about things like this, given that we were in the last 2 decades in wars that were justified by false intelligence.
Yeah, and the president, who loves to speak publicly, has said multiple times, I don't have to tell you this, you don't need to know. These are drug dealers that we're bringing in and narco-terrorists who we're killing. No specific details as to who they are, but I think what was alarming about the reporting today about the UK cutting off intel sharing is that, okay, if you're not telling the American public, you're either not telling your closest allies who are clearly asking you the same questions, or they're not convinced with the justification and the explanations that you're giving them. Neither of them are good options.
Yeah, I mean, the implication of Pete Hegseth kicking out so many people who refused to sign the agreement at the Pentagon is that they have something to hide. I think as to your...
Their press.
Yes, right. Yeah. I think as to your comment, Scott, I think the more relevant question is why are Trump's people, why is his base okay with not knowing who's on the boats, right? Why do they trust him so much that they don't need any details as to who these people are? And I think it's because Biden lost some credibility when he didn't address the narco-terrorism in a way that satisfied people. And so people are so frustrated because they haven't been able to get anything done that they're just like, fine, just bomb whoever, just take care of whoever, just Trump's gonna take care of it. And that's a level of trust that should only be given to somebody who's trustworthy.
But I think it doesn't really matter whether we trust the president or not. I mean, I'm willing to assume for the purpose of argument, Scott and everyone else, that Donald Trump is telling the truth. I don't believe he is, but let's assume he is. Even if he is telling the truth about everything, that doesn't prove that he has the right, the legal right to go in and murder people. And that's really the issue. The president of the United States does not have the legal authority to go in and kill people just because he thinks that they are narco-terrorists. It doesn't matter whether they actually are or not. And we know that there are a couple of people who were survivors who were released, not put on trial in the United States, but released to their home countries. How are they such a great threat to the United States that they had to be executed by the president of the United States in one moment, and then a second later we get to release them to another country?
I think that becomes one of the biggest, problems for this administration is that actually happened. They just let them go. And if they really thought that this was that much of a deadly threat, why wouldn't they try them? But the other part of it is, again, like, I actually think Americans are very concerned about the fentanyl crisis. And I do think that the Trump administration owes a better explanation about which part of the narco drug trafficking world are we even targeting here? And are we addressing the biggest problem that is facing this country, which is fentanyl, which is not coming from Venezuela?
Yeah, it's a legitimate debating point.
Shut up, Scott. And I just need to say, I see it differently than Madeline, the Democrat strategist there. I think Trump voters watch what he does, and they like it because they're cultist guys. They're cruel, cultist bigots. They don't care about anything. In their head, it's simple. Oh, yeah, bombing drug boats in the Caribbean with Hispanics on it. Yeah, great. Like, these people, they don't have a lot going on in there. Again, these people have been programmed, guys, to believe it's okay to surround a prison with alligators for immigrants that may try to escape. Feed them to alligators. Like, are we surprised by any of this? It's a cruelty thing with them. It's not, oh, well, Biden didn't take it serious. These people's brain doesn't work not even half a step forward. They don't think of anything like that. They think it's cool to be cruel. You got to remember, guys, and I try to be as direct as possible. I'm going to call it how I see it. These people are effing losers. I've met a lot of them in my life, guys. Never met a Republican that wasn't one. So part of this is just this G.I. Joe, like I said before, cosplay thing, again, where they think they're so tough and they pretend to be hard enough that people will believe it. It's just, and like, guys, let's just be real. Trump gained support from Republicans after the Epstein files, and Trump's clear as day involvement and hiding of his involvement. You think he's going to lose support for this? They even excuse that. You think drug boats from a Hispanic country, which no one even knows that there's drugs on it. No one knows. They're just telling us no evidence. Like, of course, this is not going to give Republicans any level of pause. These people are just broken people, pathetic, lost souls. Can't deal with the world around them, so they cry and whine and lash out. Truly insolent children. They're not thinking, oh, well, Biden didn't take it seriously. And, you know, because, again, 4 out of 5 deaths in this country come from fentanyl. Fentanyl is not coming from Venezuela. It comes from China to Mexico to the U.S. Simple as that. And most of it is being brought in by Americans.
I'd say there's 2 issues here. A, Venezuela, I mean, we don't even recognize Maduro as the head of it. We just recognize him as an indicted drug lord who is perpetually sending cocaine and other drugs to the United States. The fentanyl issue, which you raise, is a real thing, and I agree. I think people don't believe enough's been done. Because of what's happened on the southern border and because of cooperation between the United States and Mexico, we have seen dramatic reductions, actually, in the amount of fentanyl that's coming across. That is a good thing, but that doesn't alleviate the issues that we have, I think, both legally because of the indictment and diplomatically with Maduro. We don't recognize them. We have sanctioned them. There's an opposition party there. And if they end up with regime change in Venezuela and it's a group of people that we can deal with that aren't narco-terrorists, that's probably good for security in the hemisphere.
If they end up with regime change is doing a lot of work there, I mean, are we going to be engaging in regime change?
It's not unheard of, right? During Bush 41, same thing happened with Noriega. You had the issue of protecting the Panama Canal, protecting American citizens.
Yes.
You had what was essentially someone that was brought to justice for drug trafficking. So there's a lot of parallels there, and it's not unheard of that we've done this in the past.
I want to make sure we get to this. The CNN had some new reporting on a different topic, but it has to do with the Department of Defense. A lot of the women in the Department of Defense are concerned about how Pete Hegseth seems to be pushing them out of leadership roles, including a woman who was up for a top position in the SEALs and was kicked out or was passed over for her promotion. And they're wondering whether this is because Hegseth has said that he doesn't want women in combat roles. Here are some quotes. They want to keep it a brotherhood. They don't like that she's coming in and challenging the status quo. Another retired SEAL said that he believes the commander was removed because Hegseth is sexist. I'm sure they would repeal the whole women in combat thing if they could, but this is what they can do, a retired SEAL added.
Yeah, here's the deal. So it feels like that, regardless of what his true intentions are, because he's not telling the truth about the standards that are in the military, right? So since 2016, the combat standards for men and women have been the exact same. The physical readiness tests are not any different. To enter into the Army, you have to have a specific amount of time that you run for your mile, but combat readiness is the same. And yet he had this huge production that had to have been in front of all the generals and all the people to make this crazy announcement. So it's difficult for me to believe that he has good intentions when he's making false claims like that.
At Quantico, you mean?
At Quantico.
Yeah.
So do we know from our reporting why the person in question was removed from command? Does anybody given a real on-the-record reason, or just speculation?
The only statement we have from the press secretary.
Look how smug. Slob on the knob, corn on the cob, Scott Jennings. Like, guys, these people, every time, they just, they're making excuses to be surrounded by men. I don't know. Guys out there, I really can't understand this one. Please comment and let me know what you think about this, what I'm about to say. for as long as I could remember, I always tried to work, whether in school projects, whatever it was, with girls, not effing guys, for obvious reasons. I made fun of guys who went to all boys school because it seemed like torture to me. Like, and now at adult age, we still have these effing dudes who only want to work with men. No women in the workplace. What? No women in the military. I'm sorry, but if you told me your company doesn't have any women, you best believe Papi won't be working there. Papi is single. He can say that, all right? I'm single. I can say that. Again, why the F would I just want to be around men all day? I'm sorry. I have enough male friends. F them dudes. At some point, it's just like, are you trying to tell me something, Papi? My friend, you like being around men a little too much, man. Like, what's going on here? Every time, every place that there's women in, they don't want them there. What does that tell you guys? Like, and I got nothing wrong with someone being gay, but this is very odd to me. The obsession of not having women around you. What the hell? My God.
Of the Pentagon is that women are excited to serve under the strong leadership of Secretary Hegseth and President Trump. Our standards for combat arms positions will be elite, uniform, and sex neutral because the weight of the rucksack or human being doesn't care if you're a man or a woman. But to Madeline's point, she's right. The standards have not changed. When CNN asked the Pentagon to provide examples of how the standards have changed, which Hegseth has repeatedly suggested, they didn't provide any examples.
But the personnel case we're citing here about the Navy SEAL, we don't know if that had anything to do with standards or not, do we?
Well, as far as we know, she met all the standards.
Right, that's what I'm saying. And so we actually, it may have nothing to do with that. It could have, and here's the thing, we don't know. It could be they were not in alignment on the direction of, orders that were being given. It could have been he has a different preference. The problem with this story is that there is speculation. You said it feels like this, but we don't know what it actually is. And I would just say, in cases of personnel, this happens all the time.
Part of the story that the CNN story is also about how women who are currently serving feel. And actually, some of these quotes were from men who actually are suggesting that this is because of Pete Hegseth's disposition toward women in combat. And I do think it matters not just how they feel, but also what Pete Hegseth has done. He has pushed women almost completely out of the top ranks of the military.
He has.
Point blank.
Women are 18% of the U.S. military right now. He pushed out Lisa Franchetti from the Joint Chiefs, chairman of from the Joint Chiefs of Staff. There are now no members of the Joint Chiefs of Staff who are women. And despite the fact that women are the majority of the population and 80% of the U.S. military, there are 0 women on the Joint Chiefs of Staff. In fact, every member of the U.S. Joint Chiefs of Staff right now is a white male. White men are 29% of the population. Is it possible that white men are the only people in the world, in this country, who are qualified to be on the Joint Chiefs of Staff? That's the assumption, I guess, that Pete Hegseth wants us to believe. And the truth is that Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth have launched a campaign against DEI, against women, against people of color, against black people. And here on Veterans Day, we just found out that they were removing a memorial of black soldiers at a military cemetery in the Netherlands, a U.S. military cemetery in the Netherlands. It's part of a coordinated campaign from this administration against diversity, because they say diversity is a weakness. In reality, diversity is our strength.
Yeah, here's an example.
And don't ask Scott Jennings if only white men are qualified. He didn't say a word there. He didn't rebuke nothing because he for sure 100% believes that. But he's too much of a coward to outright and say it.
Of how silly this gets to, right? So they removed a picture of the Enola Gay because it got flagged for DEI problems, right? They took it off the wall at the Pentagon. It's so silly, but the major problem here in terms of DEI, I think, is that the assumption becomes, if you get rid of all the people of color and the women, that regardless of who put them in those positions, that they're not qualified for them. No matter what test they took, if you're a woman or a person of color in a high position, that you've got to go because you for sure didn't meet the standards, which is not true. DEI is for recruiting. It's not for giving a lower standard to pass a test.
All right, Bianna, thank you very much.
Guys, one of the first things Trump did when he got into the White House, if you remember, is that he had all these pictures of black and brown people removed from the White House. People running around taking pictures down and memorabilia of Jackie Robinson. Like, how many times? What else? I would love to ask a black Republican, a brown Republican, what else do they need to show you? What else do they need to show you for you to be like, okay, I get it now. They are racist towards me. Like, but she said it, Madeline there said it perfectly there at the end. DI isn't about lowering qualifications. It's about recruitment. That was flawless how she said it. It's about, instead of just looking in this region where there's only white people, mostly white people, let's look at also this region too that has a bit of a more diverse background, different backgrounds. That's all DEI is. Republicans will have you think, and let's be serious, they purposely lie because they know the truth. But they know, again, that their supporters are racist, are bigots. So they're just feeding them their red meat they like. But these Republicans will have you think that the standards are lowered for someone depending on their race. Like, what are you talking about? How delusional and insane that is. If you bring it down to its simple logic, the risk that a company worth billions would be taking to hire a bunch of incompetent people to, what, fly planes? You're just going to hire a bunch of people that are not qualified to fly planes, but because they're black and brown, we're just going to hire them? You know how stupid that is? What a risk you would be taking as a multi-billion-dollar corporation. And these supporters eat it up. Why? Because they're bigots. I don't know how else to say it. They're bigots. They're racist. They believe, oh, yeah, that makes sense. In their head, 1 + 1 = 2. They believe that. That's the math. And, I mean, guys, that's why Charlie Kirk said he wouldn't get on a plane that was piloted by a black person. Because he would be nervous, because they could be a DEI hire. Or really what he was saying, because they are black, they couldn't possibly be smart enough to have that job. I need to see their qualifications, right? You need to see their qualifications? Unbelievable. And just like Madeline said, it doesn't matter what exams they pass, whatever happens. 4-star generals they were removing because they were black. When Pete Hegseth was asked about it, he could have been a DEI hire, is what he said. I mean, and about Charlie Kirk, when he said that, like, these are who these people are. He was a vile, racist piece of trash. That's how all these people are. Charlie, like all of them, knew this wasn't true. To say that about being a black pilot, that you're scared, you're nervous to get on it because you don't know if he's qualified. You know he's effing qualified. You know he is. You know you can't just become a pilot because you're black or brown. You effing moron. But this is what they do. They peddle bigotry because they know, again, it's their pet's favorite treat. It's that simple. I'm going to leave it there, guys. Let me know what you think about all this in the comments. Please leave a like, subscribe. Really helps the channel. Really helps push the message out there. And I'll catch you in the next one.